ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ.
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಲಿ ಸರ್.
ಸರಿ. ಅರುಳಾರಾಮ್ ಸರ್ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು.
ಹೌದಾ? ಓಕೆ.
ಹೌದು.
ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಓಕೆ. ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಅರುಳಾರಾಮ್ ಸರ್.
Namaste, I'm here.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, fine.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Happy to see you.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Rajeshwari.
Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Everything is fine, doing well.
Thank you so much for joining, sir.
Well.
Thank
Shipni
you.
sir was telling that you are not feeling well. That's why.
Yeah, somewhat all right now.
Okay.
Is there rain in Chennai?
Huh?
Rain? How is rain in Chennai?
And, for the past 3 days, no rain. Otherwise, it's fine.
Okay. How is COVID situation there?
Yeah. But we have learned to live with it, and we have started working. We are daily going to the university. For the past 2 months, we are working. Daily going to the university. So, in fact, people who sit at home, they get COVID rather than people who go to university. That's how our experience was that.
That's true.
And because the people who sit at home as a precaution, they may not maintain social distancing.
Yeah. As it is spread to community, no, it cannot be stopped anyhow. Even if you go to buy vegetables.
Vinod, why you started streaming?
Yeah, it's okay. Well, let us start.
Okay, sure, madam.
Vinod, play the video. Play the video. Audio is not there. Audio enable madu. stop sharing, Vinod? It's getting stuck. Good evening, all of you. I extend very warm welcome to all the participants of today's program. I'm very happy to share with you that we have today with us Professor Arul Aram sir from Anna University to grace the occasion and deliver valedictory speech. And our own proud alumni, RJ Pavitra is with us. Thank you all for joining us. As all of you know, today's topic is radio and international perspective. To give international perspective, we have international guest sitting in Sydney, addressing to you all. As American author Margaret Newman says, television gives everyone an image, but radio gives birth to a million images in a million brains. Yes, that is the power of radio. In the decades since, radio has emerged as the ultimate survivor, adapting itself to the tastes of newer generation of listeners and absorbing newer technologies. In the 1980s and 90s, it saw off threat posed by personal video recorders and digital compact discs through a greater emphasis on listener-driven programs. By the late 90s and early 2000, radio stations were reinventing themselves to cater to niche audience. There were stations dedicated to specific genres of content, talk radio, punk rock stations, even stations that played music by a single band 24 hours a day, anticipating the emergence of Spotify and iTunes by a decade or more. Rural India relies on radio overwhelmingly for information. It also remains the most inexpensive and portable medium. Today, there are more than 180 community radio stations across India. During situations like tsunami floods, radio play a stellar role in conveying information on relief work, aid and recovery efforts when other medium became inaccessible. Radio is still relevant. Though it is easy to say that the world has gone digital, the radio is not dead. Radio is something which you can carry around, requires neither data streaming nor internet bandwidth, and is free of cost. I still feel radio has a place in the lives of Indians, especially those in the rural areas. It is far most accepted medium outside the metro. Therefore, keeping all this in mind, we, Department of Electronic Media, thought of having insight into radio. To give insight to radio world, today we have with us RJ Pavitra. As I said, our own proud alumni. I extend very warm welcome to RJ Pavitra to this program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vahini. That's a brilliant introduction. And I must say that I think you should do this presentation. Whatever you just said, you've completed half of my presentation, what I wanted to talk about. Brilliant job.
I also extend a very warm welcome to our own senior professor. I think all of you are, all our media teachers here must be knowing about our Professor Arul Aram sir. Today he has joined us. We are very happy that sir has joined us today. He will be addressing to you all after Pavitra madam's presentation. I welcome you, sir. I also welcome all my colleagues, Dr. Rajeshwari, Dr. Shripati, and my guest faculty and staff to this program, and all your participants. Without you, this program is not possible. Consistently on 5th day, you are with us with big number, and I must say, majority of you are media gurus. Very happy to see you all again on last day's program. I extend very warm welcome to all of you. Now I request Dr. Rajeshwari to introduce our today's guest, RJ Pavitra.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Our today's speaker is RJ Pavitra. As Vahini said, she is our alumni, Department of Electronic Media, Bangalore University. Here is a small introduction to our speaker, Pavitra. She started a career as RJ in Radio Rainbow of All India Radio, Bangalore. She was executive producer, music manager, and a radio presenter with Radio 1 94.3 FM, Bangalore till 2015, and later she shifted to Australia. And her credentials includes radio presenter in Bangalore who hosted a show on the radio in 3 languages, that is Kannada, Hindi and English. She is one of the 4 radio presenters to be invited by Tourism Australia in 2006 to visit Australia, experience the place and talk about the same on the radio in order to entice people to plan a vacation to Australia. So that is all we have with us. Today, she will be speaking about radio and international perspective. I request Pavitra to address our participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajeshwari. Thank you so much, Dr. Vahini. Lovely to see you all. Big hello to Arularam sir and all the people joining us live right now on YouTube. And last but not the least, my teacher, Dr. Shripati, who's played a very, very instrumental role in molding, like any other teacher, he's molded so many students. And I think when I was doing my post-graduation, this was in the year 2003 to 2005, I had no clue that I would get into radio, and everything just accidentally happened, which turned out to be my right professional choice. And I must thank Dr. Shripati for, he's played a very important role, an instrumental role in those 2 years, giving us all the encouragement, the push, at the same time accommodating us in the last minute when I had to go in the mornings, finish the show, come and, give us all the notes and everything. So thank you so much, sir. When Dr. Shripati called me up and he told me that I have to, if I could be a part of this, I said, I can never say no to you, sir. You cannot ask me whether I can or whether I cannot. It's a great honor. It's a great privilege because this is my way of giving back to my department, which has given me so much. So today I'm here to talk about radio and international perspective. I've made a very, very simple PowerPoint presentation, which I'm going to present to you. And like I've been told, after I just trying to share my screen. Yeah, so after I finish the presentation, if you have any questions, you can bombard me with as many questions as you want. So like Dr. Vahini said, she aptly said that, there was a time when radio used to be so huge. I'm sure each one of you has heard the Amin Sayani show, the Binaka Top 10, which was such a popular show. And after a point of time, radio completely disappeared. It was only in early 2000s that radio came back, and it came back like how? It had a huge impact. The whole commercial radio station setup, which came back in the early 2000s, it was a boom, and nobody had anticipated that radio would come back in such a powerful way. So today, now that I've been a part of the radio industry for close to 17 years, I'm here to give you a sneak peek of what exactly happens in a radio station, my experience in India, in Bangalore, in All India Radio, and my experience here, working here in a radio station. Now that I've been asked to talk about the international perspective, there's not much as far as the content is concerned. Of course, content is a huge differentiator, but as far as the whole structure of a radio station, it's all the same. So I am going to walk you through what a radio station looks like, be it in India, be it in a small city from India, or be it in a Western country, the key people, what makes a radio station. Now, radio is a very, very challenging medium. You know, there's television, there is, there are so many forms of communication, media especially, and radio happens to be a very, very challenging medium. Reason being, the first reason why radio I consider as a very, very challenging medium is because it's a portable medium. Now, when I say portable medium, you listen to a radio when you're driving, when you're cooking, when you're in the bathroom, you're taking a shower, you're listening to a radio station. So anything that goes on the radio, if it needs to create an impact, the message has to be really, really strong as compared to a television. When you have to push something on a television, there is video and there is audio. So if there is a bottle of strawberry jam which needs to be sold, okay, when you watch the television set, you see a mother trying to open the jam bottle, the child comes running, and the mother takes out the jam bottle. You can see the strawberry pieces, you can see the color of the jam, and you see, oh wow, the packaging looks so beautiful. So you're already convinced, and if you have a child around and he says, mama, I want that, you want to buy it as well. Whereas the same thing, if you have to push that bottle of strawberry jam on radio, it's very, very challenging, especially on a portable medium. When people are listening to radio, when they're doing other things, they're not, when you're watching television, you're just sitting and watching, you're not cooking and watching, or you actually pay attention to television. But whereas radio, you've got to keep your radio, you're doing so many other things. So whatever you convey on radio, it has to be so sharp, it has to be so efficient that you convince the people to do what you want them to do, and that is the challenge. So the audio, whatever you create on radio, the content, the script, the advertisement, the promos, it has to be so it has to be so perfect, it has to be short, it has to be sweet, it has to be crisp. This is the basics of radio that we are taught once we enter a radio station as a radio presenter or as a radio professional, that anything that you do on the radio, it has to be short, sweet, and crisp, to the point. So radio is a very, very challenging medium. Like I said, portable medium. You're listening to the radio while doing so many other things. So anything that needs to be put across on radio, anything that needs to be sold, has to be very, very, beautifully and very, very well scripted, very efficiently. It has to be delivered. Let me go to the next slide. Now, before we start a radio station, be it in Australia, be it in the United States of America, be it in Dubai, be it in India, one of the basic things that you need to do as a radio station, as a radio team, is homework. Okay, once your frequency is set, once you know what your radio station will be called, once you know what music you will be playing, whether you're playing international music or you're playing your regional music or you're playing Bollywood music, once you know what the music format is, you need to sit and you need to answer these questions that you see on screen. What is the first question that you need to answer? Who is your target audience? Who are the people who our radio station will be talking to? Okay, the target audience. For example, if I pick a target audience between, say, 45 to 60 years, and I lock that these are the people that my radio station will be talking to. That's people between 45 to 60. Next comes 45 to 60. What kind of music? A Kishore Da, a Mohammed Rafi, Asha, Lata is what will be accepted with this target audience. Now, the kind of radio presenters, if I get someone who's just a 23-year-old radio presenter to come and host a show, when my format of the radio is going to be retro music, then of course a 23-year-old radio presenter will not fit the bill. So I need to, when I audition, I am very, very specific that I get people who will fit into that category, who knows Kishore music, who knows Mohammed Rafi, who knows the inside details of what happened when, what are the things that Lataji would do before she entered the studios to sing the song. So the kind of homework that he or she needs to do, and the person who's really passionate about that kind of music, we need to capture him. after you define the target audience, I need to make a sketch of the person who will be listening to me. Like I said, a sketch as in how will my listener that I'm talking to will look like. Okay. A brief, not exactly a brief, but a detailed sketch is, drawn when it comes to that one person we are talking to. We need to sketch him. So we sit and we sketch that person. Okay, so he's a 25-year-old boy. He goes shopping to Garuda Mall. When he goes shopping, he would spend at least 2,000 on his jeans. He's also someone who has a bike. He also is someone who has a car. But before he takes out his car, he might think twice whether he really needs to take out the car, which means he's a middle class man. So a detailed description of who this person is or who this lady is that we're talking to has to be done before a radio presenter gets into the studio, because he or she needs to know, and we need to know as to what is the kind of person we will be talking to. Okay, his likes and dislikes. What would he like? Would he like to go and eat in a Darshini hotel, or is he someone who likes to go only to Commercial Street and go to restaurants on Brigade Road or near MG Road area? Is he someone of those kinds, which means he's a little high end? So basically make a sketch of how he looks like, what he wears, what kind of vehicles he has, what kind of a house does he live in, what would be his income like, what would he do on a weekend. And then once we draw a sketch as to who this person is, okay, we take his picture, we identify who this person is, we take his picture and we put his picture in a studio for the time being, and we say that we are talking to just this one person. This is our target audience. This is that man we will be talking to. Okay, and once we know who we are talking to, it becomes very easy to put a structure to the kind of content we would be creating, the way we will be talking, the language that we would be using. So to sketch, to know who this one person is, it's very, very important. It's a very, very crucial thing which is used. This is the starting point of a radio station. Once the frequency is set, once we know that there is a radio station starting, this takes a lot of time. This whole research of who this person is takes a lot of time. Let me go to the next slide. Now this is a no-brainer. Radio is all about content and only content. Okay. Now, when you listen to a radio station, you might wonder, that when a radio presenter tells you that he hosts a show for 4 hours or 5 hours, the first reaction that you get to hear from the other person is 5 hours of show or 4 hours of show. How do you manage to talk for 4 hours or 5 hours? But I would give you a little secret. We don't really talk for those 5 hours. In those 5 hours, we have at least 50 minutes of music. If not 50, say 40 minutes of music. There is at least 7 to 8 minutes of an advertisement. Okay, and there is only 4 to 5 minutes of talk, which means a radio presenter will talk only for those 5 minutes. Okay, and there is a designated time that when we are supposed to talk. So there is a format that we'll follow, that we play 2 songs, and after 2 songs, this is when the radio presenter will talk, and after he talks, there's 1 song, then there's an advertisement. So this whole skeleton is given to a radio presenter in the form of a software that we use, the most common software that we use in commercial radio stations, not just in India, but also here in Australia. It's called as the RCS. It's a very, very, a radio presenter friendly software. It's called as RCS, where everything is programmed. The songs, the advertisement, the jock talk. A jock talk is every time a radio presenter comes on air to talk, it's called as a jock talk. So a designated time is given for exactly 1.5 minutes. So 45 seconds to 1.5 minutes is what he has. And in those 45 seconds, he has to give the best content on air. Okay. So what we are taught is for any radio presenter, once he gets in, content is your selling point. No matter what you do, how you do it, whether you have a good voice or you don't have a good voice, it's totally fine. At the end of the day, the way you present it, the way you put your content out is very, very different. So radio is all about content and only content. The second thing that we need to follow is you've got to keep it very, very simple. If you are somebody who has a very, very good vocabulary, who knows big words, but if you're going to use those big words on the radio, it is not going to work, because as I said, going back to my first slide, radio is a very portable medium. People are listening to the radio while doing so many other things, when they're cooking, or while driving, or just doing something, and then the radio is just playing in the background. So everything that goes on the radio, it has to be very, very simple, and it needs to catch the attention. So keep it simple. The moment you keep it simple, the moment you keep your content simple, in a very simple manner you deliver it, you will nail it. Copy but better. In a day like today, there are so many commercial radio stations. In a city like Sydney, there are close to 261 commercial radio stations. So you can imagine, for any advertisement, for any advertiser to place his advertisement on any radio station, the radio station has to be so well equipped to give a script in a particular manner, where the advertiser is convinced that yes, when people listen to this kind of advertisement, they will buy my product. So the competition is huge, and there are chances that whatever a radio station does, there will be another radio station who might do it, because if there's Christmas, okay, Christmas will be followed in another radio station as well. But so what we're taught is, you can copy. If station A is doing something which is good, that's a brilliant idea. And we think as a team, if we think that, wow, what they've done is fantastic, we should do it too. If we do it, we've got to do it in a better way, so that nobody else does it. This is the motto that we live on. I'll give you an example. There was a radio station at 94.3. We used to run this very, very popular segment called as the Birthday Bakra. And Birthday Bakra is when, if it's somebody's birthday, we get their number, we call them up, and we play a prank, we fool them, and we put that on the radio. Now, there was another radio station who wanted to copy this, because there were so many people who were coming to our radio station. They were calling people. So many people would call to kind of get their friend become a birthday bakra. But there's another radio station which copied this entire format of a birthday bakra, and they did it so well. What they did was they started making birthday bakras of celebrities. Okay, and we had not cracked that. So they did the same thing, but they did it in a better way. So copy whatever content is going for Diwali, or for Christmas, or for Holi, or for Raksha Bandhan, Independence Day. It's a very, very simple thing. It's a very simple concept that each and every radio station will play patriotic songs. But if we are doing something which they are also doing, obviously we've got to copy, and copy it better. Now, who are the key people in a radio station? Okay. A lot of people say that a radio station is you just go and you just do a show and you come back. No, it's a madhouse. There are so many people. There are so many teams. There's a creative team. There's a marketing team. There's a sales team. Apart from the sales team, there's also, say, accounting team and administration and subdivision to sales team and marketing team. But these are the main teams in a radio station: a creative team, a marketing team, and a sales team. Let me quickly go through. I don't really have to explain what a marketing team and a sales team would do, but I would explain what I have specialized in and what the team that I belong to, that is the creative team. As the picture says it all, you've got dimag ki batti hamesha jalni chahiye. You've got to keep coming up with ideas and ideas and ideas. Like I said, if you want to copy an idea, how can my station do it in a better way? So think of ideas, think of ideas. Whatever you see in front of your eyes, that same thing has to be painted on the airwaves, which means if I'm driving to a radio, if I'm driving from home to work and I see something very, very interesting happening in front of Vidhan Sabha, okay, it's a visual treat. But how do I paint this on the radio? It's a challenge. So the kind of ideas that you need to come up with. Now, the creative team consists of these very, very key important, people who play a very instrumental role in running a radio station: a programming director, an executive producer, there's a producer, there's a promo producer, and like you see, there's a music manager, and then there's a radio presenter. Now, who is a programming director? This is exactly how a programming director looks in any radio station. When you see him, this is what he's doing. He's either shouting at the sales team, or he's either shouting at the marketing team or the programming team, ki kya ho raha hai? We need to get some sales. We need to sell this idea. So this is exactly how a programming director, and my picture couldn't have been better than this for a programming director. So I've got the right picture. But what are his responsibilities? Well, he is responsible for selecting the format of a show. Okay, now when we know that if this particular radio station is going to be retro radio station which would play only say Kishore Da and Mohammed Rafi and Lata Ji, what would be the breakfast show like? A morning show between 7 and 11. How would an afternoon show sound like? What kind of people, what is the kind of content that we need? For example, if the mid-morning show is the kind of show where a lot of homemakers listen to it, so should we introduce a chef over there who would give us recipes? How about giving some embroidery classes vouchers, something of that sort? So what are the kind of what should we do during those specific hours is what he would decide. He would also decide the music for the radio station as to how should the theme of the station, how should the station sound. Okay, overall 24/7 when people are listening to it, what should be the feel of the radio station? Is it supposed to be slow and melodious? Is it supposed to be peppy, energetic? So he would decide on the theme of how the whole station, the whole sound of the station. He plays a very, very important role in deciding how the sound of the station would be. Hiring radio presenters as per the radio format. Like I said, if the radio format is for somebody who falls under the age bracket, say between say 55 to 70, there is absolutely no reason. I don't see a point hiring someone who's 23, who's just fresh out of college, whose language is more a youngster wala language. So he would not fit into that. So he needs to hire the right talent as per the radio format. If my radio format is say international music radio station, then I would try to pick someone who would have a say Australian accent, or who would have say an American accent, because then international music and American accent, that would play. Point of contact is also the point of contact. Like I said, programming, marketing, and sales. Programming, all the ideas. What should we do? What should we not do? What are we doing for Diwali? How should we do it? Okay, if we're doing this for Diwali, then let's go out somewhere and do a show from there. So let's get the marketing team. Oh, if you're doing something for Diwalis, if you're doing something about sweets, how about going to Kanti Sweets, or how about going to say any big sweet shop and get them on board? So he is the point of contact. He would get all the programming ideas as to what we want to do on the radio and how we can integrate it on ground so that we are visibly seen on ground as well. Oh, this radio station is here, or these are the people we listen to. So that is where he would get in touch with the marketing team and sales team. If we could sell something, and if we could make revenue out of it, that's when the sales team would come in. Executive producer plays a very, very important role. He's in charge of all the on-air shows. So in a particular radio station, if there are 5 shows running, if there's a breakfast show, say 7 to 11 in the morning, if there is a mid-morning show between say 11 to 2, then there is an afternoon show 2 to 5, then there is a drive time show 5 to 9, then there's a late night show between 10 to 1. The executive producer will be in charge of all the on-air shows. What is happening on all the on-air shows? What are they talking about? Whom are they getting in touch with? Are they getting in touch with the commissioner? No, we don't need the commissioner on the mid-morning show. There are lesser people listening. We should get the commissioner on the breakfast show where there are more and more people listening. So he would monitor all that. the kind of music that is going in the mid-morning, in the morning. Do we really need, I think for the mid-morning show, this music is a little fast, this is a little slow, we should do this. So he is monitoring the entire day shows. Producer, we also have a producer who's in charge of just a particular show. So each and every show on the radio has a producer. A breakfast show will have a producer. A mid-morning show will have a producer. Afternoon show will have a producer. And evening late night show. So what does the producer do? Every little thing that goes on his particular show, he has to provide it to the presenter. Come up with ideas that how about we do this with the radio presenter. The radio presenter and the producer will sit together. They will brainstorm. Let's do it this way. You know what? Let's do it this way. How about doing an interview? How about going out on the streets and asking people's opinion and then putting that on the radio? We should get this celebrity because this celebrity had said something about this 2 years back, or dig for a YouTube video. Okay, if we're talking about, say, Karan Johar, nepotism. Okay, let's look for a Karan Johar nepotism clip on YouTube and play it on the show. So these kind of small, intricate details, a producer plays a very, very important role to get it on the show. So the presenter will be present. The presenter has to sit with the producer and design how the show is going to be. Whom are we interviewing? Why should we? Why should we not? What time will we? So a producer plays a very, very important role as well. Going to the next slide. A promo producer. He's responsible for all the show promos. A show promos would be, say, a breakfast show. Like I said, if there's a breakfast show which happens between 7 to 11 in the morning, then cutting a promo saying that tune in between 7 to 11, this is your best chance to win 5,000 rupees or say $5,000. This is very, very, what do you say, a very, very popular radio station over here in Sydney, which gives cash only in the morning on the breakfast show. Okay, that's between 7 and 10 in the morning over here. That's the only radio program which gives some, say, $20,000, $50,000, and they have this jackpot kind of a thing. Only in the morning this happens, and after the morning, throughout the day on all the other shows, they keep playing a promo every 20 minutes to say that, you know what, have you tuned in yet? If you still haven't tuned in, tomorrow is your chance to walk away with $20,000. So tune in between 7 and 10. So these promos have to be produced by a promo producer. His whole responsibility is how to create more effects, how to make it more convincing, how to make it short, crisp, very smart, and how to convince people and entice them. Oh my God, 20,000. Imagine if you just say, if you use a voice which say, if you use a voice which just says, tune in tomorrow between 7 to 10 to win $20,000, or as compared to voiceover which says, tune in tomorrow between 7 to 10 to walk away with $20,000, $20,000, $20,000. A lot of sound effects and everything, music, jarring music. If that is inculcated, of course, a promo will stand out. So it's his responsibility to make sure, not just a radio presenter who has to make sure to get more and more people to listen to him, but each and every person, a producer, a promo producer. Also, the sales-led promos has to be produced by a promo producer. If Airtel comes on board, or if a Vodafone comes on board, if McDonald's comes on board, okay, and they want a 20-second promo, then there will be a script writer, like you see on my screen. He would create scripts for the show. For the client, like I said, a show would be a show in the morning, the radio show. Okay, a client would be, say, a McDonald's or Raymond's, or say Deepam Silk Sarees, or any upcoming event which is going to happen. He would write the scripts. The scripts have to be as per the brief given by the advertiser or by the client. In the client case scenario, that he's ready to pay only for 15 seconds. And in those 15 seconds, the advertisement has to be so convincing that, you know, the advertiser benefits from it. And he says, hey, after listening to your ad, a lot of people have come to the showroom. So yes, the 15-second ad worked. how about you push this advertisement a few more times, which means if he's ready to push it a few more times, then it's more revenue for the radio station. So the script writer plays a very, very, very important role in a radio station. Like I said, with so many radio stations, with so many commercial radio stations, and it's very easy for a client to pick any radio station which he thinks, if I go to this radio station, it will work for me. So to convince him to get to your radio station, you need to have a good script writer who understands the need of the client, and he delivers it the way the client would like to see. So you make a script. So when you're in a radio station, a script writer would make a script and then send it to the programming director. The programming director would then pass it on to the sales team. The sales team would then pass it on to would mail it across to the client, and the client would go through, and only if he says, no, I think the words need to be changed, no, I think the female voice has to be taken out, I think there needs to be a male voice, or the male voice has to be taken out, this needs to be in a female voice, no, I think it needs to be in a conversation format, not just monologue. So the client would come up with his feedback. Then the same process follows from sales to programming to the scriptwriter, and the scriptwriter would make those necessary changes. Again, if the client approves with the changes, then we produce, the promo producer would then produce with all the sound effects, which would be as per the requirements of the client. And only when the client says, yes, this advertisement is good to go, it starts playing on the radio. So scriptwriter plays a very, very important role. He has to keep his ears, eyes, nose open for everything, and come up with the best of the best script. A music manager is one of the most important persons in a in a radio station. We don't really realize that how important a music manager is. We always think that a radio station is all about the voice, about a radio presenter. Of course, a radio presenter plays a very important role, but this is the jackpot for a radio station, a music manager. He or she is literally sitting on a gold mine. Because at the end of the day, radio is nothing but music. Even if you have the best of the best voice, even if you have the best of the best content, at the end of the day, if the music is not good, okay, people would switch off, people would tune out. So the music has to be very, very apt. The music manager's role is very, very crucial. Now, what does a music manager primarily do? Music manager obviously schedules music for the station, each and every song that you listen to, okay, not just here or any part of the world. When you listen to a commercial radio station, next time when you listen to a commercial radio station in Bangalore or in Chennai, okay, please remember that each and every song that you're listening to has been handpicked and has been playing at that particular time. It has been put at that particular time. So each and every song that you listen to on a radio station is scheduled by a music manager. It's a very, very tedious process. It's a very tedious job. The format that we followed with Radio 1 once upon a time was a particular song would play only once a day. Okay, that song would not repeat. Then we moved to a format where we could play a particular song, say, twice a day. So it's a very, very what do you say, a detailed, you need to be hawk-eyed when you schedule music for a radio station. You have to closely monitor other radio stations. As a music manager, you need to listen to what other radio stations are playing. If there is a movie releasing, say, day after tomorrow, or maybe in a week's time, and if there is an audio release already, if you're the first music radio station to play it, then it's like a news channel, breaking news. The news channel which happened to cover the breaking news the first, that would obviously win hands down. So a music manager has to closely monitor what other radio stations are playing. What kind of music are they playing in the morning between 5 to 7 in the morning? Is it fast music? Is it slow music? If they're playing slow music, what kind of slow music are they playing? Who is the artist they are repeating? Why are they playing only Sonu Nigam? What is the reason why they're playing Sonu Nigam? If there is some controversy happening with Sonu Nigam, then of course people are talking about Sonu Nigam, and then you would play Sonu Nigam on the radio because you're like, oh, Sonu Nigam's voice. So you want a conversation to start after they listen to a particular song. So it's a very, you know, placing songs on a radio station, whatever you listen to, it's done in a very strategic manner. Why would you play a particular song at a particular point of time? There are reasons, there are surveys, there are a lot of things done to place a particular song at a particular time. Like I said, you have to closely monitor other radio stations. What are they playing? What are they not playing? Why are they playing? Why are they not playing? Monitor music channels. Go through all the television music channels. Like, of course, they do it over here too. If there is a particular, if there is music, what do you say? And a particular song which is being played quite a few times, and you know that it's a very, very popular song, that then you would pick that song and you would play it in the prime time. Okay. Say for example, you know, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge Tujhe Dekha To Ye Jana Sanam it's a very, very popular song. So because it's a very, very popular song, I would play it only in the prime time. That is, say, in the morning or maybe in the evening. Create special playlists. A music manager will also create special playlists, say during Independence Day or during Holi. If there is Diwali, then you kind of pick songs which has Diwali themes. So a music manager does all this. A radio presenter, one of the most important thing that a radio presenter has to do, that we are taught from day one, is to connect. When I say connect, when you as a radio presenter, if you're talking on the radio, there could be a 15-year-old boy listening to you, and there could be a 55-year-old man listening to you. And a 15-year-old boy might be very, very sad because his exams didn't go well, but the 55-year-old man or woman, she is very, very happy on that particular day. So for a radio presenter, every time he or she goes on the radio, she has to make sure that she's able or he's able to please the 15-year-old listener and also the 55-year-old listener. And it's a huge gap. If you see 15 and a 55-year-old, it's a huge gap, because the kind of language, the kind of things that a 15-year-old person wants would be very different to what a 55-year-old person would want. But to bridge the gap between the two is the biggest challenge for a radio presenter. And there are very few radio presenters who in a day like today too, who have successfully managed to do that, who can connect to someone who's driving a rickshaw and who can also what do you say, reach out to someone who works with a multinational companies in a very high position. So there are very few radio presenters, not just here but all over the world, who have cracked this code. This is the basic thing. As if you crack this formula to connect, no matter how your voice is, you will be a successful radio presenter. Your personality is very, very important. You need to be what you are off air. If you are somebody who's a very, very extrovert person on the radio, but in real life, if you're a very introvert person, then you cannot fake it. Whatever you are, if you're a boring person, if you come across as a boring person on the radio, people will love you for what you are. If you are somebody who is who is a funny personality, just off air as well, and if you get that humor on the radio, people will love you for that. So for any radio personality, it's very important that they are who they are, because people are very, very smart, listeners are very, very smart, and they will know who you are as soon as they listen to you. In less than 30 seconds, they'll say, oh, this is fake, this is not who she is, or this is not who he is. They're just trying to be very cool, or they're just trying to be very, very intelligent. or they're just trying to act like they're very, very informative, but they're not informative, but they're just trying to be that. Like I said some time back, it has to be very simple, short and sweet. Everything that you do on the radio, it has to be simple, it has to be short, it has to be sweet. You have to make sure that the person who's listening to you understands what you're saying, because it's a portable medium, it's a challenging medium. Whatever you say, it has to create an impact, one thought at a time. This is every time a radio presenter goes on the radio, you need to just talk about one thing at a time. This is very, very important. You cannot talk about say shopping, and you cannot talk about politics, and you cannot bring in cricket in. Can you just imagine, in less than a minute or in a minute and a half, if a radio presenter is talking about shopping and politicians and cricketer, the listener would get confused and you're like, what was I supposed to learn from it? But if there is a connecting point between, say, shopping, and there is something which is connecting to politics, and that is connecting to cricket, then of course you bring it in. But one thought at a time. This is the basic for a radio presenter. Maintain accuracy. Anything, if something happens, like I said, maintain. If there's a cricket match happening and if we've lost 2 wickets and you end up saying 3 wickets or say 4 wickets, you're in trouble. If you take the name of a wrong personality on air, if you get the pronunciation of all these important credentials, people or bureaucrats, if you get the pronunciation wrong, then you can get into trouble. So you have to be very, very accurate. Your pronunciation has to be bang on. Presence of mind is very, very important. Presence of mind, for example, if I'm hosting a show and if it's a very, very if the playlist for the next 30 minutes is going to be very, very peppy and very energetic, and I just get to know that some soldiers have died on the border and there's a news flashing on my screen, and if I get to know that, I cannot, as a radio presenter, I should not be continuing the peppy music. Yeah, so as soon as the news breaks, I need to change the entire music and mellow down the music, make it slow, make it more, what do you say? Just generally slow music. So your presence of mind, extremely important. And whatever is happening, suddenly you've decided to do something for say 60 minutes, and suddenly something happens in your city, maybe a bomb blast, God forbid, but uh, something suddenly happens, and you've got to change the entire format of the radio show and just get into what is happening currently. So you need to be like news channels, you have to be there in the present moment. If your mind is wandering, then you've lost it. How is radio in Australia? Very, very different to how radio is in India. In India, we have, say, a lot of commercial radio stations, all India radio, community radio stations here and there. But radio in Australia is very, very different. How? There are different radio formats. The only radio formats that you get to hear in India is a lot of music, commercial radio stations. But in Australia, there is talk radio. Now, when I say talk radio, there is absolutely no music. Anytime you tune in, people are just talking, and there is a huge demand for talk radio. Different topics under talk radio. It could be about women. It could be about, say, how to bring up children. It could be about how to study for students. So there are talk radio formats. There are also radio stations where it just talks about sporting events, about cricket, about the kind of balls that you need to pick, where should you pick, about players, about their childhoods, a lot of sporting events, about sporting personalities. Church broadcasts happen in Australia. This is very, very interesting, which I didn't know. Especially in times like this, during COVID situation, people who cannot go and attend the mass during Sundays in Australia, there is church broadcasts happening, so you can just sit at home and you can be a part of the church ceremony sitting at home, the mass at home. So there are church broadcasts, there are women and children programs, there are radio stations which play only country music. So no other music would fit in, only country music. That's the genre that would go on those radio stations. Rock music, adult radio station. There's also a very, very popular radio station in Sydney, which does only adult content. And I was quite surprised when I heard it. It was a bit shocking to hear what was happening on the radio, but it is pure adult content and is one of the most popular radio stations where there is only adult content which happens on that particular radio station. So the kind of advertisers who also place their advertisements on this adult radio station would also be, that particular commodity which cater to that section of society. Easy listening. When I say easy listening, very soft, very melodious, very only slow numbers from 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, only slow numbers. This is what happens under easy listening. So there are different kinds of formats. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but there's a huge variety. What are the observations that things that I've come across when I see radio here in my experience in India? There is a more freedom of expression. Like there are a lot of things that we cannot talk about in India. The best example be politics. You can't really talk on a commercial radio station. You can't talk too much about politics, or you cannot talk about your favorite leader, because as a radio presenter, you're also in that position to influence people. Or if I say I'm a big fan of a particular leader, then there are chances of me losing out on some listeners who do not believe in that particular leader. Okay, and a radio station does not want to lose that listenership. Or there could be there could be some violence. They could just come and attack your radio station. So the kind of freedom of expression the radio presenters have here when it comes to politics or political members, or scrutinizing a particular incident, with how the political party should have handled, how they should not have handled, it is much more what do you say, better, and a broader perspective is given on the radio stations when it comes to politics and all these kind of events which can be quite sensitive in a place like India. The variety, like I said, the kind of programs, the variety, it's just not music talk format. There is talk radio, like I said, there is only about religion, there is say spirituality, there is a radio station which plays only Chinese music. The variety is huge. Also, in any Western country, the immigrant population is huge. In a place like Australia, the population, people who have migrated, it's quite a huge population. So there is a huge variety to choose from. Sitting over here, I feel I'm in India when I have a choice. Say like Punjabi music, or a Punjabi radio station, a Hindi radio station, a Malayalam radio station, a Kannada radio station, a Tamil radio station. There's a Tamil presenter, there's Tamil music, there's Kannada presenter, there's Kannada music. So for immigrant population, there is a huge variety of programs here as well. What is the next big thing? Like, the next big thing is podcast. There is absolutely nobody, or you can't stop anybody from doing their show anymore. There used to be a point, there was a time when, the prerequisite to get into radio industry was, oh, you need to be trained as a radio presenter, and only then you need to go and do a show. You need to have a good voice. But in a day like today, anybody can sit in their own house and be a star, become a huge radio presenter by just starting their own podcast. And when I say podcast, again, the basics. You need to know who you're talking to, who is your target audience, what is the content, the theme that you're starting. If you're starting something, say for children, children's stories which would teach them lessons about say about morals, principles, values, then you know that your target audience is children. Okay, and then you would pick a theme and you would get started. So when you start a podcast, you know who your target audience is, you pick a theme and you get started. And remember, as always, radio, keep it short and very, very simple. Only then you can crack the formula. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was very, insightful lecture indeed. It was just like classroom teaching with all your experience. You were able to take us a tour through a radio station
Yes.
by telling us about organization structure and who is doing what. Everything
Yeah.
are being told, because we rarely get a chance to get get into or go and see FM radio station. But now you have
True.
shown us through your presentation. It was very
True.
nice.
Thank you so
Will you
much.
stop sharing the screen now?
Yes. I'll just do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Nice to see you again back now on.
Yes. Thank you
Your
so much.
presentation was very creative as well as very interesting. Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
that.
Thank
There
you so much,
are
Dr. Vaidhi.
questions. I request participants to post a question in chat box, or else you can raise your hand so that we will unmute you. You can ask the question directly. Okay, everyone have posted that very interesting session, very nice session, very informative session.
Persons have ಇಬ್ರು hand raise ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ರವಿಕಾಂತ್ and
Okay, okay, I will see. Okay. Ravikant.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening,
yeah.
Vahini, ma'am. Good evening, Priyanka, ma'am.
Yeah.
So my question is, there's a movie which came like a few years back, Tumhari Sullu. So
Tumhari Sullu.
Yeah, like the environment was shown in the movie or the commercial radio station. What I guess from your whole session, like it was, I guess, perfect kind of everything it has in a commercial radio station, mm, like rules. Is it right?
You know what? I can't. Your voice is breaking.
Okay, like my second question is, would you name the software which you just mentioned? It was RCF or RCS?
RCS. That's the software that we use.
Okay.
R for Rose, C for Cat, S for Spain. RCS.
Okay, now I'm audible. My voice is not breaking.
No,
Yeah, you are audible now.
Go ahead with your first question, please.
Okay, and I was asking, like, Tumhari Sullu was a movie which was portraying a full commercial radio station. So from your presentation, what I make out, it was a perfect example of commercial radio station environment which was shown in that movie. Do you agree with that? If you have watched that film?
So after watching Tumhari Sullu, to a great extent, I did feel that, whatever has been shown or whatever has been shown in the movies is, to a great extent, this is how a private radio station would look. But of course, whatever she's doing inside the studios, like she goes and she eats and she just goes and she starts doing the show, it doesn't happen. A few things were a bit, it's movie-like, but to a great extent, the movie did, show some beautiful aspects and very realistic aspects of what exactly happens in a radio station. So yes, to a great extent, yes, say to a good 60 to 70%, it was very close to it, Ravikant. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. Now next, Nandini ma'am, you want to ask question? Unmute yourself. So she's not unmuting. Okay. Now I request Abraham sir. Abraham sir. Okay.
I'm there online.
Nandini ma'am came. Yeah. Hello ma'am. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much.
Yeah, radio is my passion. So how I cannot be here.
Wow. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. From my university days, I have been into radio. I've been giving a lot of programs, sports, and all those things. Yeah. Now my question is, or rather, I want your observation, whatever you call it. See, in India, you compared radio of India with that of Australia. Yeah, the Indian population and the mindset of Indian population is bit different when compared to Australian population. And maybe I do not know much about native Australians. Right, most of people who have immigrated, they're all there for education, or they're educated and they're for education. Okay, so keeping this in the background, yes, radio has been retrieved in its new form, but it has become largely an entertainment media. Probably, I mean, I do not know, in India, we still do not have talk radios, because once these commercial radios have come into picture, the original radio formats, what we call radio talks, radio features, which were very educative, and they touch the niche audience, right? So those things are vanishing. So,
unfortunately.
what's you have been in the industry for last 16 years. You have worked here also, and you were a student. So, what's your perception? Is whatever is the content just music? Then I mean, many a times, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you, but
not at all.
Maybe I'm 55, so I feel like that. The talks which happen are also not so educative. They're very, flirty kind of things. So this, we have to understand that, again, audience, like you said, it could be 60-16. Right? So it may have a kind of wrong implications. People may not think about science. People may not think about technology. People may not think about the real issues. Maybe they will slip to real than real. So, your observation.
I totally agree, Nandini ma'am. I mean, being part of a private radio station for the longest time, for close to 17 years now, I'm still one of the biggest fans of All India Radio and Vivid Bharati. And I think the kind of shows that you have on Vivid Bharati, or say All India Radio, when you listen to Krishi Darshan, or when you listen to, there's this show which happens on Vivid Bharati in the afternoons where they play song for the Fauji Bhai. The voice, the delivery, the diction, the way it is presented, it really creates an impact. And you ask any radio professional who's been in the radio industry for the longest time, I don't think there'll be anybody who would say that no, a commercial radio station any day is better than an All India Radio or a Vivid Bharati, because the kind of content, the kind of maturity, like you said, it's not a very frivolous kind of content which happens. For a commercial radio station, it's all about quick, easy. It's all about money. You need to get more and more people. Okay. Of course, content is important, but the way an All India Radio, or say a Vivid Bharati, or all this public broadcasting mediums, their format, their content is pure. Okay. And I think very soon, if not now, or maybe another 5-6 years, I think this will all come back again in a grand manner. What I see in Australia is what this kind of content is what works. Okay, there are a lot of frivolous, formats of radio, but at the end of the day, not just my age group, your age group, but there are also younger people who would. I think people are getting more and more real now. There was a time when commercial radio station came in early 2000s. It was very jumpy, it was very fake. But now people want real content, and real content happens only on, say, All India radios or like a Vivid Bharati. It's real. There is nothing fake about it. And more people are slowly shifting to that now. So I think very soon, we would reach where you want us to reach, to give real content, to give nothing frivolous, but pure content which you and I would benefit. And I think we are heading towards that.
Yeah, I mean, just to add a little more to that, even the radio, maybe except in public universities in India,
Mm.
the academic content,
Mm.
of radio in most of our universities, that is, I belong to a private university, it is again commercial. So if I ask a student to read a news, or I ask him to do a radio feature, that will also be it will be in the form of an RJ talk, which bothers
Right.
me actually.
Right. Right.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
That's because obviously the exposure for that student is so much with so many commercial radio stations. There's not just one. Obviously, there is just one All India radio with one FM Rainbow and one Vivid Bharati. And then there are say 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 commercial radio stations. So for anybody, oh, this voice is good. Oh, this content is good. Oh, my song is playing there. So people are shifting from one radio and everything is quick. Whereas in an All India radio, everything is, very slow. You will pause. They're trained, the radio presenters are trained, like, they won't read the news. Whereas on a commercial radio station, if I'm supposed to read a news, I would start reading the news. That's how we're trained. But in a Vivid Bharati, they would read the headline and they would pause for 4 seconds or 5 seconds. But for a commercial radio person, for a person like me who comes from the commercial radio background, for maximum amount of time is what I've done commercial radio station, any pause which is more than a second, okay, it's like, what happened? There is absolutely nothing dead on the air, but whereas Vivid Bharati does that, and that is what gives you so much of happiness, because, oh, there is pause. Because I pause, you also pause, they understand me. So somewhere those basic things really, really matter. And I hope that we get back to that kind of format, because at the end of the day, you enjoy, you connect to it, isn't it?
Yeah, you are right. Because considering the kind of population we have in India,
Yeah,
this should come back.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Nandini ma'am. Now I request Abraham sir to ask question.
Yes, ma'am, I'm Abraham. I'm Professor Abraham from Christu Jayanti College. I'm Media Studies Department professor.
Professor.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I was listening to your talk. This is totally different, type of a question that I'm taking you. That radio is considered as something that, a secondary consideration compared to television in India, especially. And if you see in Europe, especially in Latin America and in most of the countries in Europe, you see this radio garden, which is very, very popular. But if you see the same thing, it is not in India. I have two questions to you. Why? Two questions. One is that, why the number of radio stations in India is less compared to other Western countries and Europe and South America and all. Why it is less? And second thing is that the radio garden is not popular in India. Not much people know about radio garden. Whose job is to make people to know about it? Is it a lack of awareness? If it is, whose job is to make it popularize? Because radio is something very powerful means of communication, as we all know that, and also entertainment part, which when we are driving, when we are outside, we can log into this radio garden. We have any country, any part of the world, we can access it, or in any part of India, we can access it. The kind of clarity of the program is, so good. So not much people are aware of it. These are my two, points, I want to raise. Can you throw some light on it? It would be good.
Right. So what's the first question? Can we just come back to your first question?
Less. Why the number of radio stations are less in India? compared to most of the Western countries. Why it is less? Even though India contribution towards radio is enormous. And radio has a very powerful means of communication in India, and especially entertainment part. And second is Radio Garden.
Radio Garden. As far as I know, talking about the second question, the Radio Garden bit, I think there are so many people who are unaware of the Radio Garden thing. It's pure. What do you say? People are not aware of Radio Garden, and this is unfortunately this is one of the reasons why it's not reaching out to so many people with the kind of content they have, the kind of music that they have. It's simply marvelous, but there is a lack of what do you say? People don't really know much about Radio Garden. Also, at the same time, the number of radio stations, when we talk about why so many people have so many other countries have a lot of radio stations, is purely because a lot of radio stations come under the government sector. Like, for example, in India, it's only All India Radio which would come under government sector, but in a country like say Australia, there are quite a few radio stations which come under the government sector, which means the funding is dependent on the government. Whereas in India, most of the stations except All India Radio, all the other radio stations are private funding. So there needs to be a huge media company which needs to start, which means a huge media funding. Say Times of India is Radio Mirchi, Hindustan Times is Fever, then Radio 1 was once upon a time it belonged to Midday and Jagran. So it's all the private sectors which own these commercial radio stations. Whereas when you see in Australia or when you see in say America, there are a lot of public funding radio stations owned by the government, or it comes under the public sector, and that's the reason why you have so many radio stations.
Now, Ishita Das, ask your question. Unmute yourself.
It's not happening.
Yes, Ishita Das.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, it was a very nice session and very enriching, since I had no experience in the industry of radio. I was into PR and communication. So
Okay.
I have two small questions. One is, since you mentioned that there are around 200 radio stations in Australia, or if we talk about India also. So how one radio channel is copying the content or style of shows of other channel? Does this also create a a scene of copyright issues or media ethics when it comes to one channel to another? First question is this, because since you mentioned that one birthday bakra was one of the shows, and on the same format a celebrity birthday bakra show came, and it also got very popular. So first question is this: if different radio channels are copying shows which are getting popularity and all, so does that come under the scenario of media ethics or copyright issues of these broadcasting channels? Second thing, like if we recall our childhood times, when we used to have only Doordarshan or limited channels, we only used to get access of cartoons like Tom and Jerry or Mowgli, or once in a blue moon in any of the weekdays. Now if we see, there are over 50 cartoon channels, right? Every cartoon channel is running 24-hour shows. Don't you think in India also, since women workforce is increasing day by day, we should have a whole channel dedicated to this gender, where we talk about their creativity, empowerment, celebrations, injustice? I mean, I remember there used to be one show on Meow, which was headed by this gentleman, Anil Nair. I was very young at that time. He used to run the show Between the Sheets. It was very intimate, very, very subtle show about women life, career, challenges, relationship and all. But after some point of time, that show got off air. And that was a very quality show. So my question is that why not music stations or channels are giving special attention to this category of show as well, which has so much of potential? We are reading so many stories about women on different news portals or blogs or channels. Why not one radio station or half the segment just dedicated to women of India, something of that? So why, I mean, I'm sure there are so many brands, they will offer money advertisements, revenue in a massive way,
Right.
to attract. So why no one is thinking on these lines?
Right. All right, Ishita, let me
Yeah.
first answer the second part of your question. Now,
Yeah.
when you say women-centric shows, or say when we talk about say children, or generally any one particular section, if we need to make a show for them. Obviously, as a radio station, you can't have it for an entire day. Okay, it doesn't work in a place like India for an entire day. You have only for women. It's a huge risk, or it's not, if not a risk, it's a format which nobody has still taken that risk and tried. Okay, for example, if I come up with an idea that I want to just concentrate on students, where I would talk about how to pick a career, or how to how to go through teenage years, or how to make friends, or how to study just one day before the exam and stuff like that. I don't know what at the end of the day, as a commercial radio station, it's all about making money. It's all about, no matter how bad it sounds, if there is something which is not going to work, or which I think it is going to take a lot of time to work, I will not put my money into it at all. Having said that, there are radio stations which have say taken a particular theme, or a particular section of the community, and they do shows on that. There used to be a show in India, in Bangalore. I think it was on Fever 104, and this used to be a late night show. It was all about, say, community service. Okay, it was all about reaching out to underprivileged kids. It was all about going to orphanages. It was all about, Diwali is just on the corner. Of course, you're going to light lamps, you're going to do these things. But what are you doing for somebody who is in need of, say, basic things? Let's get together, let's do something. And that particular radio show was extremely popular, because that was the only radio show on say in this entire radio circle, which was doing community service kind of a what do you say, community service related campaigns. And they started it off. It was again a chance whether this will work, whether it will not work. They started it off and it worked beautifully for them. So it one led to another and led to another. And also, the radio presenter who was doing this played a very, very important role. So the radio presenter, her presentation skills, her the way she felt for the entire cause, and how she felt, how compassionate and empathetic she was towards all these things, just came across. And because she was cut for it, as personally, she was cut for it. So when the first campaign happened, they knew that this is going to work with her voice, with the kind of music that we're playing, and it was a very, very successful show. So yes, we have tried, but to have uh, a radio show for this kind of a radio format for an entire day, 365 days a year, it's a little too much at this point of time in India, because at the end of the day, it's all about money. Will my commercial radio station, will I get enough, what do you say, will I be able to get my bread, butter, and jam? Will I have enough advertisers to come and advertise on me? It's a big risk, which I don't think people are ready to take that risk yet. But we are not too far away from something of this sort happening, like in a Western country, in developed countries, in Australia. Yes, you have such a huge variety. When I said some time back, there are radio stations only for women, there are radio stations only for religion, there is a radio station that I was listening to the other day, which was talking about Buddhism, which talks about some beliefs in Sri Lanka, different parts of the world. It is so enriching, it is so entertaining at the same time. If I have a taste for it, I would definitely listen to it. But in India, it's a big chance, because it's a very niche crowd. Okay, at the end of the day, in India, the whole idea is I need to reach the mass. I need to reach out to everybody. But in India, it's a niche crowd. It's a risk. Unfortunately, nobody is ready to take it yet. But going forward, hopefully, there should be people who would come up with just say radio formats for just one particular section of the society, which would be a risk, but you never know. It might just beautifully work. Anything to do with children, anything to do with women. Women is huge. You can cover so many things. Or anything just to do with men on a lighter note, that would be fun as well. Coming back to your first question, is it copyrighted? No, nothing. There's nothing that you can do on a particular radio station just because you've done something on a particular radio station that cannot be done on another radio station just because there's some copyright. No, nothing of that sort exists. So we can copy as long as we copy it in a better way. We copy it. We have full liberty to do that. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, madam. That was right answer. Thank you. Now I request Prashant Ji Malur to ask question. Sir, please be brief.
Yeah. I think I have put my question. So my question is, other than the RAM, that is radio audience measurement or the rating points, which you get for each of the shows. So what is the frequency of research to know and understand the audience pulse? Like you told us, like it is carried before the launch of the radio station. Okay, to understand to whom I am speaking to, who is the person to whom I'm speaking to, kind of. Is it only once it happens, or would it happen every now and then to know the audience pulse? This is all my question is.
It's a fantastic question, and I'm so happy you asked a question like this, which means it's a very, you can ask these questions only when you're deep into the entire radio subject. It's a fantastic question. RAM is called as a radio audience meter, which to a great extent, a lot of radio stations have stopped following it. So what exactly happens? RAM is we go to 400 people at a given, we used to go to say at a given point of time 400 people, and we ask them, are you liking this? Why are you not liking this? Are you liking this presenter? Why are you liking it? Why are you not liking it? What music? Why are you liking this music? Why are you not liking this music? So at one point of time 400 people you go to and you get it back, and then you make those changes. So out of 400, 390 of them are saying that this music should have been that and this. So we would make those changes in a very subtle way. We don't make those because at the end of the day it's just 400 people that you're going to, so you can't depend on those 400 people to make an entire change. So in a very subtle way, going by whatever has happened with those 400 people, whatever feedback that has come in, we just make some subtle changes. Okay, that is RAM, which a lot of radio stations, I think even when I was there, we had stopped following RAM completely because it wasn't just working in our favor. What we were thinking of, what we were looking, or what we were seeing in our radio listeners was very different to what we were getting from the RAM. And at the end of the day, what was working at that point of time was not what was being seen on RAM. So we had stopped following RAM completely. But every 6 months we have something called as a lab, a listener audience, it's called something listener audience lamb or something, where we what we do is each and every show, I'm not getting the entire, it's the tip of my tongue, but I'm not getting it. So what we do is each and every radio presenter on his respective shows will pick 10 listeners. Okay, and we would get all the 10 listeners from different shows. So if there are 5 radio shows on a radio station, we get all these listeners, 10 into 5, 50 people in a room. And we ask them, it's a very, very detailed survey where we ask them that, where we have questions like, if you were to associate this radio station with a color, which color comes to your mind? Just to get to the deepest of the deepest thing as to what they see, how they see your radio station, how your radio station is perceived. We ask them these detailed questions as to what kind of music would you like to listen to, why would you like to listen to, in the morning, what would you like to listen to, why this particular artist, tell me 5 good things about Sonu Nigam, tell me 3 bad things about Sonu Nigam. So it's a very, very detailed research which happens with the lab listeners, okay, which the radio presenters, those ardent people who listen. So those 10 ardent listeners who listen to my show every single day, no matter what they're doing, I would pick them. I would get them to the studios, lock them in a room with this detailed questionnaire, which is conducted by an executive producer or the assistant programming director. They all sit together, and this session happens for a good 4 or 5 hours, where we ask them, like a psychologist, what a psychologist does is what we would do with our listeners, to ask them really strange, bizarre questions. And they would ask us, why would you ask questions like, how do you see, if you were to give a personality to our radio station, how do you picturize him or her? Is our radio station a girl or a boy? Very strange questions that we ask. And but the answers to which we sit down together and we brainstorm, okay, this is how a radio station is perceived. They think, it's a sec AA plus, or it's a sec B, or it's a very mass radio station, or this is the kind of color. If we say, which color do you think would represent our radio station, they're saying this color. Why would they say this color? So this is a lot of detailed research which happens in the room, which then comes out, and as a team we all sit together, we brainstorm music, this, that, put everything together. And this happens once in 6 months. And then the necessary change then reflects on the radio, music wise, artists wise, radio presenter voice, the change in the show format, everything happens post that.
Now I think let us go for last question. There are many questions in the chat box. We are not able to take it because of the time. I think for you also it's getting late.
That's all right.
Yeah. Sukanya ma'am, please ask your question. Unmute yourself, please. Yes. Okay. Please unmute, ma'am.
Yeah, now?
Yeah, we can hear you, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I just want to know, just now you told me about a lab. So you just said you will pick up 100 members from the audience. So how, 10 members. So how do you pick up those 10 members who are the ardent listeners?
It's again the listener database. So the people who listen to our radio station, we would have a database of all these people who are calling us, who listen to us like they're ardent listeners, who listen to you even more than you listen to your own radio station. So there are a set of people who would listen to your radio station 365 days a year, on their birthdays, on your birthday, on every single day they're listening to you. So these are people you would pick from your database, and you get them. As far as RAM is concerned, the radio audience meter, these are random people. These are random people. We go out. Okay, there will be an agency that who will be doing this job for us. We will not go out, but this agency will go out, go on the streets, take random people. Hey, just wanted 10 minutes and we wanted to ask you, do you listen to Radio 1? And if they say, Radio 1, which station is this? I don't even know about this station. So there, tick. So, so we just catch hold of random people, and that's how a RAM is conducted. A lab is conducted by picking people from your database and getting them to your studios. Ardent people, ardent listeners of your show.
Okay, thank you. Prashant, do you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to ask, because she answered my question. So basically, it's a qualitative focus group discussion, what you do with your audience, from the lab,
Yes.
whatever you select your audience from the lab, it's a focus group discussion.
Yes, it is a focus group discussion.
In-depth questionnaire or kind of.
Yes, very, very in-depth questionnaire.
Okay.
Everything, basically, like I said, like how a psychologist would, do his intervention with his patient. That's how detailed. At the end of the day, a listener would come out and is like, oh my God, this is a little too much. Please don't call me for another 6 months. I won't come for the next lab, because we squeeze them so much to get so much of information out that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Okay. Thank you so much. The interaction was very interesting. It shows your depth of knowledge, your experience, and your observation of the field where you are working in. Thank you so much. It was very interesting discussion as well as presentation. Thanks all the participants who have asked questions and made this program more insightful with your queries. And there are many more questions in the chat box. Very sorry, we are not able to take those questions right now. We'll be moving on to today's valedictory program. The valedictory speaker today we have with us is Professor Arul Aram sir. Before that, I think Pavitra ma'am, your parents also must have joined today to this.
Yes, they have. I think they're watching me.
They were watching your program. They must be very
Yes, they
happy
were.
to
Yes,
hear you
yes,
presenting
of
before
course.
all media gurus in India.
Yes, that's
Now
nice.
I request Dr. Rajeshwari ma'am to introduce Professor Arul Aram to the gathering. Please stay with us, Pavitra ma'am.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, once again. Again, it is indeed my great pleasure to introduce you to our today's valedictory speaker, Dr. I. Arul Aram, Professor and Head Department of Media Sciences, Anna University, Chennai. He was the director of UGC's EMMRC during 2010 and 11. Earlier, he headed the Department of Media Sciences during 2012 to 14. He was additional director of the Center for Faculty Development in 2019-20. And he was the coordinator of MSc Science and Technology Communication offered with support of DSD. He was formerly a chief sub-editor with the Hindu newspaper in Chennai and in New Delhi. He had also served as the president of the Madras Press Club. He has been a resource person for UNESCO training programs on media in Jaffna. He had presented papers in several national and international conferences and published 143 research papers. He has published 5 books. Those are television in education, understanding news media, development communication, media technology and society and communication strategies for coastal communities. He specializes in the areas of environmental communication and communicating climate change. He was a postdoctoral fellow of the London School of Economics. 18 scholars have pursued their PhD under such supervision. He had undertaken projects funded by UGC, UNICEF, UNESCO, MHRD, IGCAR, ISSR, ICSSR, DST, and ISRO. Sir, it is our honor to have you here as our valedictory to a speaker. I request you to address our participants. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I congratulate Dr. Vahini, Dr. Sripadi, and Dr. Rajeshwari for successfully conducting this 5-day workshop. It is a wonderful experience listening to RJ Pavitra from Australia. Having listened to her talk on radio, I too would like to talk about radio so that there is a consistency in the topic of discussion. And when you talk about radio, that long back, when the radio was newly introduced, there was a play, Invasion of Mars, in 1938. And this is recorded, the study on this is recorded in the famous book, Milestones in Mass Communication Research. In that, it found that 28% of the listeners thought that the program was news, because the program, it was a play, but it was prepared in the news format. And so 28% of the listeners thought that the program was news. And of this, 78 were frightened. Factors of effectiveness of the play, radio play, was where dramatic quality, trust in radio, use of spurs, tuning in late, education. And because of various factors that this play was taken seriously, they thought that this was not a play, it was a real thing. Martians have really invaded the earth. But even in this thing, study shows that even mass panics are not evidence of magic bullet theory, because that for long they have been believing in the fact that media has equal and powerful impacts. But this is one of the study which found that media does not have equal and powerful impact. This is but this again is a classic example of fake news. Nowadays we talk about fake news, with regard to social media, where there is no gatekeepers or mediation. But even with mediation, there is fake news prevalent for long in the media, mainstream media as well. And this also testifies the paradigm shift from the powerful effects media scholars were believing and to changing on to the limited effects. Limited effects, and of late, some of the scholars even believe that limited effects were prompted by the commercial media industry itself, because that media has a negative impact. They didn't want to want that to spread, so they were talking about limited impacts. They didn't want the media to get a negative image. As college students, we had rare opportunities to do small programs in All India Radio in Tiruchirappalli. Most of the students used to take it as a for personality development or enrichment to develop themselves. In fact, All India Radio had the speaker also, Pavitra also mentioned it very thing. All India Radio had a very major role to play in getting the green revolution in place in late 1960s and 1970s. A hybrid variety of rice popularized by radio in Tanjavur belt came to be known as radio rice. AR messages were powerful in making villages take to green revolution. Today, radio has got a revival in FM commercial radio. In fact, if I make the point I'm making is startling, but studies have to prove that if commercial radios giving information amidst music and songs are having greater impact and spreading in disseminating news itself or useful information itself, because when people are moved away from newspapers and television, and because of car radios or cell phone, mobile phones, and they listen to the commercial radios and they get nuggets of information, valuable information interspersed with music. I shall also focus on community radio. Mainly I shall focus on community radio or radio for development in this. And our guest speaker is from Sydney. My classmate Raisel lives there, and he is taking care of, besides his job as a medical counselor, he is taking care of SPS Radio's Tamil service.
Oh, wow.
And it is a way of community radio catering to the needs of the Tamil diaspora. SPS is a government radio station. In different languages, they cater specifically to the different needs of the people. My friend has occasionally interviewed me for SPS Tamil radio. When I happen to be in Sydney, he has also invited me to see the radio station. And compared to the Chennai All India radio station studios, the studio size is small and compact. And when you talk about radio for development in South Asia, I like to refer to one of the projects, the Sri Lanka's Mahavali Community Radio, which was set up in 1981 by the Sri Lankan Broadcasting Corporation with the assistance of UNESCO and Danita. The project was set up to facilitate the socio-economic development of the settlers. It's introduced new crop varieties and irrigation techniques to a new settler population by diverting the river. They need to be educated completely on their livelihood option, and that helped. And because of the international tie-up, because the radio, just by conveying information itself, it's not enough. The content has to be very carefully prepared. The content knowledge, the thematic knowledge has also to be there with the scientific experts, and how it has to be simplified to reach across the people. The studies found that Asian broadcasting systems were originally organized as a means of propagating government thinking, and were designed to simplify, to inform people. Basically, in Asian countries, the radio had been used traditionally to propagate the government viewpoint and in a simplified way to reach across to the people. This project, Mahavali project, attempted instead of just top-down communication, two-way communication. Listeners have been actively involved in the management. That is one of the greatest thing about this project. The listeners should speak up. Listeners clubs are a promising way. For instance, in the government setup or a formal setup, the radio station is there. If the listeners do not have a voice, sometimes the radio may not represent the views or the aspirations of the people. In fact, in 2002, the government of India paved the way for setting up low-powered FM transmitters in education institutions. And for the first time in February 2004, Anna University got the first license to set up community radio. Right now, I had that as well, Anna FM, Anna Community Radio. In fact, my illustrious senior, Dr. R. Sridhar, who happened to be a great radio personality, was heading the department at the time. And he devised how this community radio should be run. For instance, that Anna University is running a radio station. It does not mean that it's a campus radio. We are not running the radio station to serve our own students, but we are running the radio station to serve the local community. For instance, 100-watt transmitter, it will reach 15 kilometers in open area, but in concrete jungle like Chennai, it will reach up to 7 kilometers radius. And Dr. Sridhar carefully identified that women, underprivileged women around the Anna University campus, main campus, from the poor households, as slum clearance tenements as the main community to be involved in that. They were the community who are encouraged to listen, and they were asked to do the programming. And later, after the Anna University experiment, later NGOs were also allowed to set up community radio stations, because government was not very finicky in giving community radio station to anybody. First, they gave it to education institution because they have already a setup and they have fall under certain guidelines. Then NGOs as representative of the people, non-government organization, they gave it. It can be used for education by broadcasting programs in coordination with local communities in their own languages and dialects. And this community radio stations help translate knowledge gain in terms of science into public health. For instance, we had run 2 programs by DST on empowerment of women and the science for women, and later health and nutrition of women, and later we ran a program on planet Earth about environment as well. Educating them, for instance, these set up community radio station, they can take up the local issues. If located in a village, educating the farmers in organic farming, millet cultivation, and livelihood generation. And it can raise awareness about important issues like HIV/AIDS awareness, creating health awareness, training and counseling to women who are socially and economically disadvantaged. Guidance in the area of finance, management, procurement, and marketing. For instance, recently somebody came to me for an insurance policy. Then I asked her that, why don't we talk to the community radio, not a hi-fi and all. Why the insurance is necessary, how people tend to benefit, and what are the pros and cons. And she gave an excellent interview that we broadcast. In rural areas, some of the very vital new challenging science topics like climate change can be addressed through community radio. For instance, climate change as such, when we talk about climate change as a global phenomena of temperature rise, glacier meltdown, and sea level rise. But as a regional phenomena, many variations happen, crop failure, or probably that sea intrusion. All these things, even scientists may not be aware of it. But when you have community radio in different remote villages, the people can air their views and record what changes are happening over a period of time. And they may not be, scientists need not have to take it as it is that opinion is right. But the people's perceptions are nevertheless valid. They may have to be put to scientific validation, but the people perception itself may not be known if you don't get across to the grassroots people and get their views. For this also community radio plays a great role. Health, hygiene, drug abuse, vaccination, child care, all these aspects can be taken up in community radio. For instance, I was in Delhi with one of our community, first community producer, Jamila, for a first community radio conference. And in that, information and broadcast minister was there. And when she was asked that, Jamila was asked that how community radio has helped her, she was saying that before I started doing programming in community radio, and my husband used to be he's a drunkard and he often used to beat me, and I used to put up with all the insults. And my children education used to be discontinued once in a while. But after I joined the community radio movement and got empowered, I have decided that even if my husband doesn't change his ways, I would not allow him to spoil the education and future of my children. That is one of the greatest impact, and the minister was very happy about it. Challenges of community radio, and Ms. Pautra talked about on the content side, but when we run the community radio in a small way, and we need to even take care of many things like even license, advertisements, and regulatory issues all rolled into one, and technical solutions, in fact, the content sharing, because you cannot create all the content yourself. Content sharing will reduce the cost. Likewise, training a group of community radio personnel in one single spot and developing them capacity, building their capacity is very much necessary. And to run a community radio, technology has to be demystified so that all can share the benefits. In fact, when we run the community radio station, even ordinary women from the slum clearance tenements, they start doing program. They do edit it in the software. It need not be that a professional has to be there. And in fact, we have employed a community woman itself to take care of the community radio station. Because the idea is that when somebody else does the programming or calls for the programs, then the perception of their likes and dislikes may not necessarily reflect the aspiration of the communities we represent. So we have taken in one Selva Kumari, and she is a person who is the main person who runs the station with a 10th class pass, and she's able to successfully do it, call for the programs and to manage the people and even settle the bills also. The voice of the local people should be the backbone of the community radio station. So another aspect of what I want to talk about is that right now that the COVID period is a very difficult period of the mainstream media has gone overboard, and so much so that because of scare, people have stopped touching the newspapers, have stopped subscribing to the newspapers, and because of the television creating a lot of scare and scoreboards, now I think they have reduced it, and many people have stopped watching television also at this point of time. But in this occasion, that UNICEF has brought together several community radio stations across the country and to produce programs on COVID, and they have given specific guidelines to produce programs. And Anna Community Radio Station is also one of the radio stations to produce the program on COVID, and we get a very good reception because we are producing 10 episodes in in the magazine format. Magazine format in the sense that for 25 minutes or so, a magazine it can have a jingle, interview, talk, success story, quiz, skit, music, poems, debate, storytelling, reporting functions, and the like. Not all of these things, some of this combination, but since it's a science-based thing and a health-based thing, and almost all programs we encourage at least one doctor or some expert opinion is also there. And signature tune is fitted into the beginning and the end. And some of the topics we are doing programs are about different varieties of mask, the mask, the importance of mask, home quarantine, care during quarantine, social distancing, how to protect elders, nutrition, food safety, breastfeeding. And these are the things when mainstream media is obsessed with passing on information and that events, this awareness creation aspect, they are not able to do successfully. And we are able to do successfully. And that too, we do it, the programs with the local women, catering to the local community, and they are very effective. And during this COVID period where the schools are also shut, and we now got NCRT to give us programs on education, and that programs are also being added. Because, and the general guideline I have given to our team is that at least 80% of the programs in this COVID period has to be on health, directly on COVID, or on education. And because that now the priority is this are on livelihood options, not on other aspects. Because people are COVID has affected many people, their livelihood options also, and the community radio should play a supportive role in this regard. Our community radio station has put many students as producer in BBC radio, commercial radio, and television. One of our students, Kamarkat Kausalya, was at one point of time a household name because of being an RJ, popular RJ. But in spite of all these things, a lull has set in the last 5 years or 10 years, and we are trying to revive it. Because the community radio, unless you keep the complete vibrancy, and if you are not taking it carefully, it can so happen even that daily you are repeating the previous day program also too. I'm not telling it as a joke, and I have noticed that because unlike commercial radio or big radio station, not many people vibrancy is lost, and sometimes the small radio station, the tower may not be antenna may not be placed properly at tower, or it got disconnected. These people may apparently air the program. There may not be any reach also. To that extent, it can be bad. If not cared for, even programming get repeated daily in community radio station, or program reach is not limited, is program reach is just limited despite program being broadcast. We have given a new vigor to the community radios during this lockdown period, involving those alumni and community members who are already versatile in program. During this lockdown period only I took over, and we won't give the new vigor, but suddenly introducing new students, it was not possible because they are not coming also. So people who are already trained, we have asked them to select other people and do the program. The production teams sit in their homes and produce content with reasonable audio clarity. They don't even come here, and they sit in the home. And some of the wonderful ways we are doing is that we have put a set of questions and ask the other person to record and send it answers by WhatsApp, and not even phone recording, so that the clarity is crystal clear. And so that they record it, and just keep the fan off or air conditioner off, and with this silent atmosphere, you record it, not even with acoustics or anything. The content is shared over WhatsApp. we need to train new batches of students and community members for better sustainability. The other day when I was talking to my illustrious senior, Dr. Sridhar, I was taking Jamila also is producing program now as one of the episodes. He was saying that where is the new Jamila? Because we have trained some community producers, but as years go by, we need to train new people and to have the vibrancy and sustainability. Thank you.
That was very, very good and very informative session indeed. It is, I think the first statement what I have made, this radio is still relevant. It is justified now, and with perfect statistics, perfect experience, and perfect examples. Thank you so much, sir, for that insightful lecture from your side. Though you are not very, not in a condition to talk, but you spoke very well, and your preparation and your knowledge is really, commendable. Thank you so much for that. Now we have come to end of the program. I should tell how this webinar went on. This webinar got inaugurated on 12th August by Professor Venugopal KR, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Bangalore University, and followed by a lecture by Professor KG Suresh. He was a former Director General, Indian Institute of Mass Communication. He spoke about designing effective media curriculum and various subjects to be taught in media and how we need to be practical oriented. Various aspects of media education as well as media, present media scenario. He gave very good insight into it. And for next, on 13th, we had a session by Professor Amit Prabhu. All presenters know how energized, the power-packed presentation it was. It was on public relations skills and opportunities. It was just the travel through the public relation entire journey. It was very good lecture indeed. And then we had Professor Pankaj Saxena on 14th August on film education in India. He spoke about how FTI started. He's from Film and Television Institute of India, how FTI started courses and how they are running and how to get admission into that and what is the significance or importance of formal education in film. And then yesterday, 15th August, we had Trends and Training in Graphics and Animation by A.C. Balaji from Manipal Institute of Communication. It was also well attended, and he gave all aspects or the pipeline of animation as well as graphics, and its importance and the kind of education we have and what kind of technical knowledge everyone should have to get into graphics and animation profession. So with this, we are coming to end of webinar, the Media Insight. We're very happy and indeed very thankful to all of you, all our resource persons, as well as all our participants. Without participants, it is the program cannot run. And I'm very happy to say that we got registration from all over India, and 90% of them are teachers. Because they are teachers, they are here even till at the end of the till the end of the program. And I should tell, or I should I can proudly say all my resource persons that whatever you spoke, whatever you taught us will be taught to our students through the media teachers. It will reach the classroom. It will multiply. It is just like a magic multiplier, I can say. I thank all the resource persons. I thank our university administration for motivating us to take up this program and do continuously. This is third webinar series what we are conducting now. First we had in the month of May, and next we had in the month of beginning of July, and now in August also we had. All these sessions were like series of program. First 5 days guests were there, and after that 9 journalists who came and interacted with the students and participants of the webinar. And now media insights, specifically we just wanted to get into different fields of media with education as well as the practical training requirement in respective field. And I can now proudly say that all guests were very good and they spoke very well and to the point, and we really got insight into media. And I should thank all. Thank all the presenters, especially media teachers. I always remember them. I acknowledge them at every program. Now I want to read out the people who have been attending since 4 days. This 5th day of webinar, and still they're all listening to us. I thankfully acknowledge the presence of our Professor Emeritus Amjad Ahmad sir, then Professor Varghese sir from Kuvempu University, Professor Samata Deshmane, she's heading Sociology Department in Bangalore University. I thank you, madam. And Professor Sanjay Malgatti sir, he's from Karnataka University, has joined us, and Professor Satish Andinje sir, he joined us from Kuvempu University, and Professor Nandini ma'am from Manipal University, and Professor Richard Rigo, Dr. Iraya sir from Physics Department, Bangalore University have joined us. And apart from these teachers, still many more media gurus, Professor Abraham, Professor Aishwarya Maharam, then Ashok Keval, Ashwini Badsha, then Bhagyalakshmi Padaki ma'am, continuously she's joining all our seminars. Bhavana Srinivasan, Bibu sir from Kerala has joined us, Deepak Shinde, then we have Dinesh Kumar Divakar, Disha Goje, and Dr. Anshu Arora, Dr. Dilawar Singh, Dr. Kamna Lad, Dr. Sriramulu, Dr. Preeti Tiwari, then Dr. Rukma Vasudev, she is also supporting us, then Dr. Santosh Kumar Pradhan, Dr. Sunita Yen from Environmental Science Department, Dr. Seema Vinay Kumar, then Dr. Geeta TP, Dr. Shanmugappa, then Dr. Pranati Rani, Dr. Prashantji Malur, Dr. Rakhi Tiwari, Dr. Usha Devi, Dr. Gopal, Dr. Maulya, Dr. Prashant Sharma, Dr. Rajneesh Kumar, Dr. Surendra Pratap Singh, Gayatri Shekhar, Govindaya, Ishita Das, Arvind, Jagan Mohan Singh Rathore, Jagrup Singh. Then we have we have Srinivas, Jyotibai, then we have Kennedy, then we have LB Oja, Sampath Kumar, MK Kokila, then Manish Kumar Mishra, then Manju Rose Matthew, Manjula CA, she is also joining all our webinars. Then Marin Matthew, then we have Navjit, then Parama Gupta, Parshuram Kamath, Prabhashankar Mishra ji, then Prajwal Prasad, Praveen Malnad, then we have Prabhakar Kamble, then Dr. Yatish Kodawat, Sandeep Kumar Verma, Renuka Kiner, then Rekha Eligar, Ravindra, then Satish Chaudhary, Selisha, Shamika Srihari, all our teachers, thank you so much for your presence. Then Sibanti Padmanabha from Tumkur, Simon Joe Varghese, Sukriti Niranjan, Suhas Patak is also be with always he'll be with us. Then Sushil Kumar Rai, then we have Vinod Kumar Singh. If I left any names, please excuse me. All your presence made us very happy and overwhelmed. Your overwhelming response always motivate us to conduct such programs in future too. Thank you so much for joining. Now I request Dr. Shripati sir for formal vote of thanks.
Good evening to all of you. I wish to thank everybody who made Media Insights webinar series successful, especially our Honorable Vice Chancellor. He inaugurated the series. The resource persons, Professor K.G. Suresh, Sri Amitabh Prabhu, Sri Pankaj Saxena, and Sri A.C. Balaji. I wish to thank today's resource persons, Professor Arularam and R.J. Pavitra, for the nice talk. I also thank the participants across the Pan-India. I wish to thank our coordinator, Dr. Vahini, my colleague, Dr. Rajeshwari, Professor A.S. Balasubramanya, Professor Amjad Ahmad, guest faculty, students, staff, and of our department. Finally, I wish to thank Mr. Vinod Rao for his technical support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shripati sir, for organizing this. He is instrumental in arranging guests and making this program possible. I should thank Professor Usha Devi madam, especially from our university. She's been with us since first day. Thank you so much, madam, for your support. Thank you so much. I thank all of you once again. We will plan one more webinar in future if COVID continues, if we cannot open the classroom. Thank you so much, all of you. Your certificates will be sent to your registered email. Please fill the feedback form. Based on your feedback, we will be sending the certificates to all of you within 3-4 days. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thanks, RJ Pavitra, and thank you so much, Arularam sir, for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Once again, we'll meet in future.
Sure.
Hopefully through webinar as well as directly. And Pavitra, Shankar, whenever you come to India, please visit to our department.
Sure.
And we want to have direct talk to you, direct interaction with you as well as with our students.
Of course, we can do it
Thank
direct.
you
We can
so
also
much.
do it from here. Anything.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.